Hello, Israel! I'm so happy to be here. This is the first time I've ever used this microphone. Is this good? I'm so sorry, I know almost no Hebrew. So this is all in English. Ivrit, right? That's the language? Yeah. So I'm coming all the way from London to tell you about the 3 problems, or subtitle, what makes a game worth making, what makes them worth playing. My name is Raphaël Benros. As you know, I had a studio called SNACKBOX Games, which I'll be talking about, and I am so honored to be here for the 20th anniversary of Games Is. Woo! All right, let's get into it. Questions, interactivity, come in, come to the front. Firstly, raise your hand if you've ever played a game that's made you laugh. Wow, so many hands, great. Raise your other hand, or keep it up, if you've ever played a game that's made you cry. Ooh, most people. Now, has anyone played a game, keep it up, keep your hand up, that's made you change a decision in your life? Okay, most of you. I'm not, actually a few of you, that's pretty good. Both hands, great, amazing. In reality, I expected fewer, except that some of us are game developers, so I assume at one point you were like, well, actually I'm going to play a game which is going to make me a game developer. It's a bit of a trick question, but a little bit about myself. Why am I asking this question? So that's me back when I had a bigger mustache. I didn't have that beard. I love that beard, though. This is me at an event that we call Play Praxis. Its core of the event is asking people that question, coming from all sorts of backgrounds. Personally, my background, I don't know if you can tell, I'm French-American, which makes me the most pretentious person you'll ever meet. Yeah, anyway. I went to university to a very posh place called St. Andrews. That's where the Prince William went. I never met him. I also then got a master's in climate change law. I lived in China for 8 years until they kicked me out due to COVID or something. And now I live in London. I did live in Israel for a year, but during COVID, so I didn't have to go outside. That was great. And then I got into the games industry in China. I was working for Ubisoft at the time, and I wanted to find a way to merge my interest in climate change with game making. So I worked in a couple of areas. One is helping coordinate the Green Game Jam. I don't know if you've ever heard of it. It's part of UNEP's UN Environment Programs Playing for the Planet Alliance, where all these game studios, huge game studios, come together and do things like green activations, so on and so forth. I've also worked with Dots Eco. Is Nadav in here? No? Okay, well, he'll be here tomorrow. You can go talk to them. I also travel the world to come to these wonderful game conferences like this one, usually showcasing indie games. The one that I work with the most, I don't know if you've ever heard of Take Us North. Raise your hand, anyone? I thought maybe people who are going to this talk might have heard of us. It's a game where we are telling the story of the US-Mexican migration. And it is a hot topic. We can talk about it a little bit later. What I do mostly now is Play Praxis, which is with this team, Jordan with the big beard, Cindy. We come together and bring academics, journalists, game makers to talk about what is worth making in this game. When I'm not doing that, oops, wrong way. Hoo-hoo. Is everything backwards in Israel? Is that what happened? I run SNACKBOX, so we make web games, small snackable games that you can play by just sharing a link to test cool concept, cool ideas, and if it works, we'll invest more energy, more time with the team to get those game ideas on Steam, where it'll be a bigger version. Of course, what I call, or what I do with that work is a snack. What we're going to talk about today is the meal. How can you make a game of substance? Now, yeah, right button. There's been over 40 years of the games industry. Most of us have perhaps not played a game that's changed our lives. This is how I started. I assume most of you guys would recognize these games. For me, Pokemon was like, I'm a Game Boy Color. You can probably guess my age actually from this. Or does anybody know at least one? Everybody know at least one of these games, right? Pokemon, we got EU4, Mario, you play that with your siblings. There's Dofus, which is a great tactical turn-based RPG. The art in there is still an inspiration for people. If I have to pick a game on there that changed my life, and I'm going to talk about it later, is Journey. Has anybody heard of Journey? Yeah, okay, so you've heard of Journey. Amazing. Journey is huge inspiration. And then right next to that, we have BioShock, which I know are like two different genres, two different themes, but like transformative games in my experience. So let's get into it. As much as these are the games that I like to play, I think I have, as an individual, a bigger responsibility, and that responsibility is to ask a question. What does the world need? So let's take a moment to think about it. Ask yourself, this is not an art, this is not a technical, this is not a business talk, this is a philosophical moment to just reflect on what we're doing in the games industry today. And I think we have a responsibility as people who tell stories to ask big questions. What does the world need? That's the biggest audience we can reach, which is exactly what we do in our medium. That's if you go to Games for Change tomorrow or you go to any of these social impact conferences, the first key data they always say is there's like over 3 billion gamers in the world. So we're talking to the most people. So we should ask the biggest questions. Anyone have any, you want to shout out? What does the world need? You. It needs you. Entertainment, peace. Peace is, I feel like that's a good one this year. This one could be a good one. My answers to that, I think on an individual level, you could talk about sensitivity, compassion. These are building blocks, I think, to peace. Awareness, being able to look outside ourselves, being able to look inside ourselves, to grow, to pass on the lessons. But actually, when we ask this question, there's a value judgment in there. There's a value statement, which is who defines what is need? Who defines what the world is? We won't go to that level of depth, but I just want to throw that out there so you guys can think about it as well. And I ask you as game makers, how do you decide what goes into your game? Are you looking outside of your games? Are you looking in other media? How often are you outside of your comfort zone? I'm outside of my comfort zone right now. I don't normally talk to this many people at one time. And you're not allowed to talk back at me. So that's cool. Ooh, we're good? Boom. So I think about 3 problems. What does the world need? There's 3 things I try to address when I'm thinking about deep, meaningful things. The first one is, I would argue that we live in a post-truth world. I've chosen this very sad image of a tidal wave, I guess a tsunami that's hitting Japan, which I guess happens way too often. And I guess my argument is that we live in a world where it's easy to stop asking yourself, is it true? But to remain in this feeling of, well, actually, how does it make me feel? How do I feel? And I think this is true of my generation. I'm 30, but I think it's especially true of the younger generations that I see with my nephews and nieces. I think it's true of my parents' generation, to be honest, no offense. But I think where we see this today most is, of course, in politics, which I'm sure you guys have a super fun time with, in entertainment, in news, obviously, and in fact, these things kind of feed each other. I would say today, one of the biggest challenges or the biggest questions I want to understand is, why is it that we live in this world where people don't seek out deeper truth, but just want to focus on how they feel? They give up that search on objective reality, whatever that means to them, which I know is kind of contradictory. You'd say that's kind of subjective, but are there any things that can protect us from the waves of emotions, the waves of self-defeating emotions? This is something that we deal with, I think, on a daily basis as a species. The other problem that I have an issue with is that we spend a lot of time majoring in minors, majoring in areas of minor importance. What does that mean? We're going to chase immediate joy. We know that. That's what we look for as game developers, right? We're looking for the fun. We want that unit of, is it science, is it art? Oh, we don't know exactly how to define it, but we know it when we have it. So we're definitely culpable of that on some level. And I think that means that we sort of discount what requires a bit more effort, what requires a bit more work. I've put up a photo of Mars because it was the mission statement of a very, very wealthy person for a long time, that I won't mention their name. And I think it's the wrong vision to sell. We have an opportunity to take care of our own world, and who says we have a right to a second planet if we're not even taking care of the first world? That's a personal rant, but where I see this most today is in social media. It's the focus on the body, the fact that, I mean, it's good that you should keep your body healthy, but sometimes it's taken to an extreme, and it's a focus on money, being able to sell a vision, which I don't think these things necessarily have an intrinsic value. So that's one of the problems I think about a lot. And the last one that I want to mention is objectification. I think one of the biggest challenges we have today is being able to let the other person be fully alive and fully themselves while we ourselves stay fully alive and fully ourselves. That there's not a clash where one person takes over the other. Where do I see this in games? This is really funny because it's semi-contradictory to the way that this conference started, but even the term whales, you know, like you're dehumanizing like the individual that is the one that allows us to do the best possible work in this industry. I think they called it high net worth individuals is what like the business side calls it. And I'm like, well, at least they're calling them individuals, I guess, you know, like it's not so bad. Where do we see this today? I think in relationships, in work, obviously, and technology, there's something about the abstraction of work through tools which tries to keep pushing things into units of measurement. And I think this is a very big challenge for us. However, we have a lot of tools ourselves as game makers. We have choice. Choice is our grammar, choice is our craft. You guys are probably familiar with this diagram. This is the generic version of a core loop. I feel like if you've taken a game design class or spoken to someone who's ever had to deal with the basics of game design, you'll be familiar with this. It's a psychological loop where you're going to give the experience to a player the ability to discover, to decide, to act, and if they made the right choice, they earn a reward. We have a choice. We give a choice to players. We ourselves, as game makers, have a choice. What is that choice that I'm asking for us today? Who do you want to be? Who are you? I like this slide. I'm gonna let that sit. If you've been making games for a couple of years now, we'll say, and it's maybe not your first game that you've published, you may have come to the realization that releasing a game is firstly harder than, like making a game is harder than it sounds, even if it's a simple loop that you want to launch on web. You'll probably also realize that there's part of it is about how can you feed the product that you're building, and how can you build a team that allows you to build the product, and that actually a game is a product, and that's okay. You can take that mindset of solving a problem, that's okay. But on one side you can say, well, that problem is here to make money, or on the other side, that problem is to solve something that problem is here to solve something. So here we have this dude, and I don't know if it's the right or left for you guys. On the left, we have Satoru Iwata, who was in charge of Nintendo for a while. Twice, he halved his salary when the company was not doing well. When his decisions, his choices were not being followed up by success, by reward, he halved his own salary twice so that nobody would lose their job. And he's famous for the quote, "In my heart, I am a gamer." Which, by the way, is a low bar, right? Like not firing people because you're in charge of a company where you probably have equity and other sources of capital is kind of a low bar. And the fact that the quote that we remember him by is, "In his heart, I am a gamer," we're all gamers, you know, like that's why we're here. But look, that's the challenge. So I ask you, who do you want to be? Isn't that crazy how like it maps perfectly onward? I'm just gonna do it one more time. This was this guy, and you know what happened to that guy? That guy got impaled by his own creation. So I'm not saying anything, but you get to choose who you want to be. And I think the market is ready for it. Aside from the fact that you guys are here, aside from the fact that we have a whole day of Games for Change tomorrow, the market is ready for this. Who remembers this? Do you guys know what? Oh, okay, right away we got some. This is known as the most downvoted comment in all of internet history. And what is it? It's video games. And what is it? Are you guys familiar with the story? It's an official post by Electronic Arts. It's the response of Electronic Arts by on a complaint in Reddit of someone complaining that they just bought like a $60 game, and that if they want to unlock the two favorite characters, Darth Vader and Luke Skywalker, it's only done through loot boxes. You guys remember that? This was less than 10 years ago. And the response is infamous, that it should give you a sense of pride and accomplishment. This is a post-truth world. If you can sell people, I mean, it's the same thing that happened in Belgium. We have video game companies that are arguing that essentially gambling is what gives people a sense of accomplishment. I'm not saying it's good or bad, it's just like, call it what it is, which is complete rejection of the humanity of the individual. And the market rejected it. I mean, this is the worst comment of all of internet history. It's not like something offensive, you know, it could have like, I don't know, war or race or something. No, it's just that you didn't give me Darth Vader when I wanted Darth Vader. But we forget quickly and we keep pre-ordering games, which I'm sure you guys have all pre-ordered GTA and all of the other things. No, you guys are good students? Oh, good. Good. Amen, brother. So, My argument is that not only do individuals care, but there is a market out there. I'm sure a lot of you are yourselves indie. Let's ask the question. Raise your hand if you're an indie game developer. Cool, so it's like 50-50, which is cool. And raise your hand if you're a mobile game developer. Oh, similar, interesting. And there's some people who didn't raise their hands. I don't know why they're here. Console, I guess? I don't know. Anyway, 48% of Steam sales are indie games. That's the indie dream, right? You have a game that drives to the front page. Suddenly you've sold 1 million copies. You made that with you and your buddy. You guys are millionaires. Whoa, amazing. That's why we're all here. But there is an overlooked segment, which is if you string them together, you have these games that are trying to tell a story that are beyond just entertainment, which is what BAFTA considers this category, which I don't know if it's the right terminology. We can all define that together. I just finished playing Indica. I think you can see it up there, yeah? It's a fun game. I don't know if you can tell, but I'm also Jewish. And you play as a nun who gets rejected, which I feel like is my situation as well. I don't think I would last very long in a nunnery. And I mean, honestly, I'm not going to get too much into it, but I love that we are able to make these games. It's published by our friends at 11-bit, which we'll talk about later, shortly. But at least it's a game that asks you, I mean, it confronts you with some pretty epic human errors, but it asks you, you know, what is your relationship with this kind of mistakes in life? And I think it's important that we don't shy away from those, because if you look at other media, those are the films that people remember. And those are the books that we keep reading. And so there's no reason why we shouldn't have these games that stick with us, that we have that quality. So I'm sure you guys are great students and you're going to be very familiar with all of these. But the point is, there's a market, and here are the case studies. Everybody recognize this game? Yeah, it is such enthusiast participants. Yeah, round of applause. So Papers, Please. For me, this is an example of a game that addresses the post-truth, in that it turns truth into a game mechanic. Are you able to fact-check under emotional pressure? This is making you realize your relationship with what's in front of you, and that truth has a cost, and that you have to fight for it. This game sold over 5 million copies. And we know that they're now, like, I mean, this is a watershed moment, we would say, in the world that we're living in this meaningful games kind of space. The other one is This War of Mine, again, an 11-bit. I'm not shouting out just because I have some wonderful friends in that publisher, but this game is really interesting because it's now part of the core curriculum of Polish education. This is one of the ways that they learn history and their relationship with war. And if you know anything about the Polish history, it's that it's a pretty like integrated with war. So suddenly games are forming and shaping the minds of young people. Who would have thought? I also, honorable mention, I also recently played Blueprints. Yeah, I feel like this game also makes you kind of struggle with like what is truth and how do I like build myself through that. So I'm going to put that on there. I don't want to say all the themes are puzzle games, but obviously puzzle games do make you work your logic, and I think it makes sense that truth and logic sort of have a relationship. So how can we address areas of minoring in areas that are major? I'd like to put up, I'm going to pronounce it in French just because it's like, it's the French in me. I'm sorry, I can't hold it back. Gris. If you know this game, it's a mechanic where you're slowly recovering color. It's someone that's dealing with grief and depression. It's super sad. There are no words. I don't know if you guys, have you guys played this game? Have you seen, yeah? I think it does a really good job of saying, no, 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 keep looking. I know that like there's not much to take you away from the pain, but if you work through the pain, you will get to somewhere better. And I think that this game allows you to focus on those things that are meaningful. I think honorable mentions, of course, What Remains of Edith Finch. This game actually won the best game, BAFTA's best game in 2018. We have also Florence that won the BAFTA Best Mobile Game of 2019. So these are recognized games. You guys know them. The industry recognizes them. Players are buying them. Greece ended up selling 3 million copies, more than 3 million copies. That's a lot of depressed people. But they allow us to focus on what's important. Family, the mind, processing events, emotions. These things are definitely things, I shouldn't have to say this, you know, at this stage in game making. And the last one is my favorite, is Journey, which I feel like merges quite nicely with this photo, so I guess that's why I chose this photo. Journey is really interesting because if you listen to, firstly, the developers are interesting, of course, from a PlayStation point of view. I think they have this funky spiritual slant to them, which, you know, like take or leave, you know, those are world systems, these are how you think about it. But what they found was interesting is they wanted to do this sort of multiplayer feature, and that actually the players were attacking each other, were kind of like pushing themselves off and like infringing them. And what they did is they removed collision. And so the inverse happened, where people felt like, well, if I am going to interact with the player, I'm going to help them. And I remember booting up this game. I don't remember how I found out about it. So, I mean, this was 2012. So 14 years ago, so however old I was, I don't know, 16. And I was this nerd, and I was so excited to get on a PlayStation 3 this game, and like I went to GameStop, if you guys remember that, and I like had the code. I had to buy it so that I could download it. And what are they doing with the discs? No, remember when you go to stores to get a code? That's great. It's a fun experience. And this became the fastest selling PlayStation Network game at launch. And I cried when I played the game for the first time and I realized I could play online, and I had someone accompanying me through the journey. We exchanged no words. It was just these little chirps. And then we were kind of like challenging each other to get the longest scarf, which is really cool. I mean, if I think about it, it would still bring me to tears. But this is a game that, because we couldn't speak, because we looked the same, they removed that element of, I think, objectification of game, and it was just about a human connection. I don't know who that was, but they made me feel human. Ugh, it's insane. They then followed it up with Sky, Children of the Light, which is not for me, but that did sell or result in 300 million downloads. There's a lot of lonely Asian people. It's very popular in Asia. But I think that's an epidemic also in the West, so don't worry about it. And I'd like to mention also Take Us North in this, where we're really trying to tell the human story through migration. And I think that's the point, is that video games have that ability to tell that human story. So, do you want to be a big shot? Will you rise to the challenge? Now that we have our core loop idea, and now we've done our competitor analysis, we've looked at examples, we've looked at case studies, let's put it together and look at the building blocks. Or the building box. Because, hey, it's a box. I know people tell you usually think outside the box, or there is no box. I've heard that one before. That was crazy. But I actually think boxes are good, not just because I name all of my companies with the word box in them. But I actually think that in this case, if we're talking about problems, you want to make the problem a pillar. We've all heard of game design pillars, right? So it's the same thing if you do in marketing. You're going to have your communication pillars. These are the things that filter the choices and optionalities that you have so that you can better focus on what you need to build to deliver that core loop experience. In this case, I suggest make the big problem that you thought about, the thing that you want to address for yourself, for your community, for your society, one of those pillars. If you define those constraints, it's just like defining any other constraint, whatever is your tech stack, whatever platform you're publishing on, whatever is your budget, whatever is your team. These are constraints that will help push your craft forward. Why? Because at heart, as game makers, we're problem solvers. You're going to solve a technical problem. You're going to solve a storytelling problem. You're trying to solve this fun problem. So why aren't we trying to solve human, deep, social problems? We have that capacity. We're masters of problem solving. Let's apply it to something that can actually change people's lives. Someone that has done that and practices this every day, for me, is Jordan Magnusson. What's his Norwegian names? I can't do it. He's the one with the big beard that we saw in the beginning. He's now a professor at University of Brentford, something like that. And he made this game. I don't know how. Is anyone familiar with this game, Loneliness? It's okay. This game was released in 2010. It's a very early example of a web game that focused on translating the feeling of loneliness. And I have to say, it only takes 5 minutes to play. Look it up, Loneliness, Jordan web game. I can share a link at the end. Where you play as this little black box, and you're trying to approach other black boxes, and as you approach them, they scatter away from you. And you're playing that experience, you try to get closer and closer, and they keep scattering. And I mean, I can still feel the goosebumps. Within 5 minutes, you have a sense of solitude, a sense of loneliness, and it forces you to process, what is my relationship? And what am I expecting out of this experience? Some people might grow bitter and say, well, I don't want to be friends with those boxes anyway. Other people will be like, no, it must be me, it's not them, you know, whatever. But it's incredible. Like in one little going up mechanic and the reaction on the screen, we're able to give that feeling. Now, I'm not saying that you can make a game as simple as that and you're going to reach the people that you want. I think the idea of putting one emotion in one game is very powerful, and that's great, but I think some problems are more complex than that. But the point is that you can find the world where you can anchor your problem, and you just have to make sure the world is able to hold that. And what symbols you give to players are the things that they're going to carry outside of that game. I'll go back to one of my first examples. When I started playing Pokemon as a kid, I just viewed the whole world as Pokemon. Like I thought I was going to go out into nature and catch little creatures. So those symbols in the world you anchor it are very important. This is the only slide that has actual words. Normally I don't do words, but I think it's a cool framework. My background is in storytelling, and it's important for me to have a core, like a system I can apply things to. So this is Dan Harmon's story circle, but for me applied to meaningful games. So the first thing is know your audience. The second thing is know your problem. So knowing your audience, it can be, like for me, it's my friends that are asking deep questions about life. Where do they want to go? What does it mean? I was talking to the founder of Dots Eco, and he was saying he wrote down a list of all of the major problems that he wants solved for his children, for the next generation. Once you know what those problems are, be the game designers that you are. Define your game. Give me a one-liner. Give me the pillars. Make the problem one of your pillars. Then anchor it in a world so that it can hold the problem with justice. And make sure that you find the right symbols that people can take with them. Then apply your story structure, define your loop, make sure that it works, and then take a moment and pitch it. Pitch it to your friends, pitch it to your audience. Whether it's a prototype that you can whip up with the latest technology, or it's a pitch deck, or it's just a conversation. Ask your friends, do they care? If they do, that's the permission for you to build with the people that you respect. Talk about it as you build, share it, and then learn from those experiences, and then come back to, did I build something that my audience recognizes? Did I build something that made them feel the problem that I was trying to address? And you go again. And the point is to get as close to possible to your audience and as close as possible to the problem. And I think this is a very much game design issue. Only when we are able to iterate quickly on the problems that we're trying to solve are we able to build better and to learn faster. And this is such a complex system that it's super important. So in the end, I tell you, if you're trying to make a game worth making, find a real problem. Find something that you care about in this world, in your life, in your family, with your family, your friends, your community. Keep trying, be unique, be funny, be clever, be open-minded, and practice. Practice the craft of making a fun game, of course. And now is the time to grow the space where meaning meets makers. You can find me in London. Let's go out, let's laugh, let's cry, and let's change the world. Thank you.